Look, guess what?
If you think I'm evil, well, just wait till you meet my variants.
And that's the gambit.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and today's video is about something that you may not want to hear. It is about how Kang will kill Ant-Man in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This has been a hot subject lately, and I do think that this is indeed going to happen, but I think there is going to be a catch to this, which we'll talk about towards the end of this video. But first, it's time to revisit some old leaked set photos from Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, some of you may remember this, but the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania stunt team were given shirts for the movie. And on the shirt, it shows Ant-Man's helmet shattered with the reflection of Kang in it, apparently using some sort of energy weapon that we can see light coming from. Could this be the death of Ant-Man? Well, since these photos came out some time ago, I have believed that Ant-Man will indeed die, and there are several specific reasons that we'll dive into, including how the director recently said that Ant-Man 3 will permanently change the MCU. They also showed the Ant-Man 3 trailer at San Diego Comic-Con a few weeks ago, and the trailer basically said that Kang has killed many Avengers in the past, or the present, or the future, because Kang can time travel, and he does it a lot. But we'll talk more about this in a bit. Now, recently, Film Theory came out with a great video about this, and they dive into the actual structure of films. And I really enjoyed it, and you guys should check it out after you watch this video. And ever since this video came out, a lot of people are now talking about Ant-Man dying, and Film Theory talks about the structures of movies, and they talk about these things called pinch points. And they mention that Kang has to prove that he is indeed a very real threat. Thanos did this by winning in Infinity War. He did this by killing Loki and destroying the Hulk. This was the pinch point. So how does Kang prove himself? Well, Kang will do this by killing Ant-Man. This will be the next pinch point in the MCU. Now, let's talk about Kang first, and how I believe that many people really aren't prepared for just how insanely awesome this villain is going to be. To start it off, Kang has basically millions of variants. Kevin Feige even confirmed this. He said that we are going to see many different versions of Kang, many different variants of Kang, and basically it's not just going to be one Kang that the Avengers are going to have to fight. Although I do believe that there will be one superior Kang, but here's the deal. In the comics, Kang essentially has a limitless number of variants, and he's actually able to transfer his consciousness into another variant right before he dies, essentially making him immortal, which alone makes him a huge threat. But make no mistake, Kang is worse than Thanos. In fact, Kang let Thanos do everything that he did. Or I should say, He Who Remains, who is a variant of Kang the Conqueror, Nathaniel Richards, he let Thanos do everything because he controlled the TVA, which controlled everything. In Loki Season 1, they even state that the TVA let them do everything. They let the Avengers go back in time. They said that was supposed to happen, meaning He Who Remains let that happen. He Who Remains / Kang is such a boss that he let Thanos eliminate half of the universe. He didn't care because he knew the ending. He knew that the Avengers would go back in time and defeat him. He knew everything, which is what makes him so dangerous. But it gets even worse. He Who Remains wasn't even really evil, but Kang the Conqueror, is very evil, and He Who Remains even says, if you think I'm evil, wait till you meet my variants.
Look, guess what?
If you think I'm evil, well, just wait till you meet my variants.
And that's the gambit.
Thanos at his core was trying to do something good, to save everybody. Yes, he was savage in trying to accomplish this plan, but Kang is worse. Kang simply wants to rule because he's evil. Thanos didn't want to rule, he wanted to rest after, but Kang wants to rule the entire multiverse. So we've established how bad Kang is, and here's 3 pieces of evidence that Ant-Man will die at the hands of Kang. The first piece of evidence is the trailer. In the trailer, we know that Ant-Man, when he meets Kang, says, "I don't know who you are, but I'm an Avenger." Kang looks at Ant-Man shocked and he goes, "You're an Avenger? Have I killed you before?" This tells us that Kang has gone up against the Avengers before and has killed them. It may not be in our universe, it may be in another universe, because remember, not only can Kang time travel, but he can also jump to other universes as well. And this is something that Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness were actually preparing us for us to understand the rules. So Kang can travel through time and he can also travel to other universes. And it looks like he's probably run into a few different Avengers teams. And considering the fact that he is alive, I'm assuming that he has defeated all of the Avengers teams that he's ran into. Now, like I mentioned, Kang is essentially immortal, which means he could have lived for thousands of years by now. Heck, he could have existed for millions of years because he can actually exist outside of time, which means he could have literally gone up against countless number of Avengers teams. This could be why he actually doesn't remember if he's killed Ant-Man before, because he's killed so many Avengers in the past he can't remember if he was one of them. And even if he hasn't killed Ant-Man in the past, this statement right here proves that Kang will indeed kill. He has no problem doing that at all. The second piece of evidence is the leaked set photo on the shirt. I already briefly talked about this and it's pretty self-explanatory. Ant-Man's helmet is busted, Kang is in the reflection, so clearly he is the one that caused it. This could be the death of him, or this could simply be a very big blow to the head. Either way, it's really not looking good for Ant-Man. But the third piece of evidence is that the director said that this movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, is going to permanently change the MCU. Now, how will this permanently change the MCU? Well, there's a few different answers here, all of which can and probably will happen. One is that Ant-Man will die. This will obviously permanently affect the MCU, it will permanently affect the Avengers and everybody that Ant-Man knows. And honestly, it's going to be a huge shock to a lot of people if he does indeed die. I don't think a lot of people think Marvel will do that. Paul Rudd, the actor himself, is adored by pretty much almost everybody. And he is fantastic as Scott Lang / Ant-Man, which is why I believe that nobody thinks he's actually going to die. So his death will definitely permanently change the MCU. But I also think that his death will start the Young Avengers, much like it did in the comics. We already know that his daughter, Cassie Lang, is indeed going to become Stature. Marvel Studios released the first poster for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and it actually has Cassie Lang in her Stature suit. So this is confirmed. And Cassie Lang is a very prominent member of the Young Avengers in the comics. It's also very clear that Marvel Studios is setting up the Young Avengers, as we already have several of them in the MCU as it is. Ms. Marvel, Kate Bishop, Billy and Tommy from some universe out there, and more. But again, in the comics, the death of Scott Lang is actually the reason the Young Avengers are formed. Now, originally, when we first heard about Ant-Man 3, insiders said that this movie could introduce the Fantastic Four. However, over the past year, everybody has been saying that it's actually going to be a setup for the Young Avengers. And the setup could be the death of Ant-Man. We also know from the trailer that Cassie Lang gets into a lot of trouble, and that Scott actually has to pick her up from jail at some point in time. And this is kind of a classic story arc that we see a lot in movies in general, and that we've actually seen in Ant-Man before. Ant-Man was a criminal, then he became a superhero. This is kind of what's going to happen with Cassie. She's going to be some sort of a criminal, but go on to become Stature. But what changes her? What changes her mindset about life? Well, it looks like it could be the death of her father. So as you can see, there is a ton of evidence pointing towards the fact that Scott Lang / Ant-Man might actually die in this movie. But here's the kicker. If he dies, they might actually bring him back, especially if he dies inside of the quantum realm. Now, I know some people may not like that. Some people always talk about, well, there needs to be stakes, and there's not really high stakes in killing somebody and bringing them back. But this is called Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and we know that they're going to spend a lot of time inside of the quantum realm. And the thing is, we don't really know how the quantum realm works. That's what this movie is really going to tell us. What we do know is that time works differently inside of the quantum realm. Ant-Man inside of the quantum realm was only in it for 5 hours, but in the outside world, he was in it for 5 years. We also know that Janet Van Dyne was changed inside of the quantum realm, and she now has the ability to somewhat control some type of energy. These are two things that could actually bring Scott Lang back. One is time travel, two is the energy that could possibly heal him to save his life, or bring him back to life. Basically, anything is possible inside of the quantum realm, which is why they could bring him back. Now, having said that, I do think that it would be much more of an impact and a much better demonstration of just how ruthless and strong Kang the Conqueror actually is if he permanently kills Ant-Man. Now, I don't want Ant-Man to die, but this would severely affect the MCU and, like the director said, permanently change it. And I don't really foresee Ant-Man and his team being able to defeat Kang the Conqueror. They may be able to defeat one variant of him, but like I mentioned, even if one variant dies, he can simply transfer his consciousness into another one. So they could temporarily stop him and maybe MODOK, who we know is going to be a villain in this movie as well, but I don't think overall they are going to win this fight. Because remember, this movie is kind of the official start of the Avengers The Kang Dynasty. So this movie is going to show us just how strong and ruthless Kang is, and they might just do that by killing off Ant-Man. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay up to date on all things MCU, and don't forget to check out the video by Film Theory. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.